At 85 years old, Chuck Norris is far more than the action hero seen on movie screens. His strength is not just the kind you see in Hollywood, it's the type of strength that enables a person to stand tall when life continues to knock them down. Chuck's story is not just about winning fights or action-packed roles, but about surviving the hardest battles in life, where strength comes from within. Chuck Norris is a living testament to what it means to endure hardship, persevere through pain, and become stronger through adversity. While the world knows him for his martial arts prowess and his roles as a tough guy in action films, Chuck's true strength lies in the personal battles he fought long before the cameras rolled. Carlos Ray Norris. A difficult childhood. Chuck Norris was born Carlos Ray Norris in the small town of Ryan, Oklahoma. Growing up, his life was far from glamorous, and his childhood was filled with poverty and fear. The home where he lived with his father, Ray, and mother Wilma, was far from peaceful. Ray, a man who had served in the war, returned home a changed person. His internal scars from the war grew deeper, and he turned to alcohol to numb his pain, creating a volatile environment at home. Chuck's early years were marked by fear and the constant presence of anger, and yet, his mother's unwavering love and faith were the guiding light for the young boy. Despite the turmoil, Chuck's mother did everything she could to care for her 3 sons and keep their family together. The moment Chuck stood tall, Chuck's pivotal moment came when he was just 14 years old. His father's violence reached a breaking point one night when Ray came home filled with rage. Chuck, who had spent years living in fear, found the courage to stand up for his mother. Though he was scared, he blocked the door with his body to protect her from his father. He wasn't crying, yelling, or running away. Instead, he stood in silence, determined not to become the man he feared. That was the moment when the boy who had been broken by fear began to fade, and the fighter in him began to take shape. Chuck's childhood had been filled with pain, but it also forged in him a quiet strength that would eventually become the foundation for everything he would later achieve. Escaping the darkness. A new beginning in California. When Chuck turned 16, his mother decided they had to leave the chaos that had consumed their home for so long. She packed up what little they had, and the family moved to California, where Chuck could finally begin to breathe. California didn't promise happiness, but it offered freedom, a chance to escape the darkness of his past. It wasn't just a physical move, it was a chance to leave behind the fear, pain, and anger that had shaped him for so many years. Chuck carried the emotional scars of his childhood with him, but instead of breaking him, they became the source of his strength. He didn't realize it at the time, but the hardships of his youth were quietly preparing him for the man he would become, a fighter in the Air Force. After joining the Air Force at 18, Chuck was sent to South Korea, where his life would take another unexpected turn. While stationed there, he discovered martial arts. At first, Chuck wasn't in love with it. It frustrated him, especially as he struggled to master the techniques. Yet, he refused to give up. Every time he fell, every time his body hit the mat, he got back up. It was in the practice of martial arts that Chuck began to learn discipline, something that had been sorely lacking in his childhood. The hours he spent perfecting taekwondo and judo weren't just about acquiring new skills. They were about building a new identity. He transformed from a shy, quiet young man into someone who was confident, disciplined, and ready to face any challenge that came his way. Turning discipline into a career. When Chuck returned to California in 1962, he carried with him the discipline and strength he had developed in the Air Force. However, he still had a long road ahead. To make a living, he opened a small karate school, but the early days were difficult. His studio was often empty, and the silence was deafening. He waited, day after day, for students to arrive, all the while maintaining a strict discipline in his own life. Chuck didn't care that no one showed up. He showed up every day, worked hard, and poured everything he had into his classes. Over time, word spread, and slowly but surely, his students started to arrive. Chuck's persistence paid off, and his school began to grow. What had started as a dream was slowly becoming a reality. The silent struggles of fame. Despite his success, Chuck Norris faced personal struggles that went unnoticed by the public. Beneath the tough exterior, there were deep scars from his past. The loss of his younger brother, Wieland, in Vietnam, haunted Chuck throughout his life. His brother had been killed while serving in Vietnam, and Chuck never fully recovered from that loss. Additionally, his marriage to Diane Holchek, which had started before he became famous, eventually ended after 30 years. The demands of his career had taken a toll on their relationship. And then, in a surprising twist, Chuck discovered he had a daughter, Dina, who had been born while he was serving in the military. Although he had missed out on the years with her, he slowly built a relationship with Dina, finding some comfort in their newfound connection. A new beginning with Gina. In 1998, Chuck Norris married Gina O'Kelly, and finally, he found the peace he had been searching for. Gina's steady presence and quiet support helped Chuck heal from the wounds of his past. Their marriage brought stability to Chuck's life, and in 2001, they had twins, Dakota and Danley. For the first time in years, Chuck felt the warmth of a home filled with love, laughter, and family. He had spent decades fighting battles, both on and off the screen, and now he could finally experience the joy of fatherhood and the peace that came with it. Chuck's life, once defined by struggle and sacrifice, had come full circle, and he was able to enjoy the simple pleasures of life with his family. The battle to save Gina's life. However, in 2013, Chuck faced one of the greatest battles of his life when Gina suffered a life-threatening health crisis. An MRI scan led to complications, and Gina's health rapidly declined. Her muscles weakened, and her voice became shaky. Chuck, who had been known as the unbreakable action hero, found himself sitting by his wife's side in the hospital, holding her hand through the uncertainty. The fame, the success, and the accolades from his career meant nothing in that moment. He spent millions of dollars and dedicated his life to finding a way to help Gina. Through it all, Chuck remained by her side, showing the world that his strength was not just physical, but emotional. The love and loyalty he had built throughout his life were now being put to the ultimate test. A final lesson in strength and love. Chuck Norris's story is one of strength, not just in the physical sense, but in the resilience of the human spirit. From his humble beginnings in Oklahoma to his rise as a global icon, Chuck has faced countless challenges. He has shown us that true strength is not about never falling, but about having the courage to rise again each time life knocks you down. Through his struggles, both public and private, Chuck Norris has become more than just a hero in action films. He is a symbol of perseverance, loyalty, and love. A reminder that the toughest battles are often fought in silence and the greatest victories come from within.